What's good, YouTube? I just want to apologize in advance if my eyes are all over the place. I'm going to be looking at papers and the computer and whatnot as I'm doing this video. But I just kind of wanted to address the recent Matt Powell article on Forbes that a lot of people have kind of been talking about. Kind of go back to my roots of response videos here. But I attempted to do this video once already, but I was running out of time on my memory card, and I wasn't really sticking to the script that I had kind of outlined for myself. So I'm going to try and stick to that script a little bit better and go through it as I had initially planned. So the first thing I want to talk about with this article is the credentials around Matt Powell himself. Now, he lists a handful of things on his Forbes site. I tried to look at his Twitter, his LinkedIn, kind of get a good idea of exactly where he's coming from, who he is, and what type of expertise allows him to make these types of determinations. Now, he said he worked as a senior merchant for 14 years, and I looked up what a senior merchant was and still didn't really get a full grasp of what that term meant. But kind of going through my research, I basically surmised that it was it's basically someone who works in retail sales, from marketing to trying to figure out ways to better increase the value of products and trying to advertise in order to increase sales. Basically just helping the business in different retail capacities. So I guess that does give him some sort of insight, but at the same time, if you've been selling cheeseburgers at McDonald's for 14 years, that doesn't make you necessarily an expert at selling gourmet cheeseburgers. So I don't know exactly what industries he was involved in, that sort of thing. I'm not giving full credence to that. And then it says he started a company, Princeton Retail Analysis, which I initially thought was associated with Princeton, the university. But looking a little bit deeper into it, it's just because the business is located in Princeton, New Jersey. There weren't any websites I could find really detailing much about the company. There was very little information out there about that company. Then he went to Colby University, liberal arts school. From what I could tell, he didn't have any sort of secondary degrees. Could be wrong. He was associated with MVP.com, which is no longer around at this point. And he cites LinkedIn. The fact that he's one of the most followed people is part of the reason you should give a little bit more credence to his opinion. Now, I know a lot of people from my generation don't even have LinkedIn accounts, and that's kind of a dying social networking site. So really, I wasn't able to gain anything from these credentials that really said, oh, this guy is for sure the leading expert on this, other than a lot of people assume he is. Now, I'm not saying I am by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just some guy responding to this because I thought it was a little off, and there were a couple things that jumped out at me. And for the record, I am not in my parents' basement, which is something this article indicates a lot of us YouTubers are. But the next thing I want to talk about, kind of moving aside from the credentials of Matt Powell, is his definition of a sneakerhead. Now, he defines a sneakerhead as basically someone who's knowledgeable about the origins and history of sneakers, may spend a great deal of time and money studying the category and its past while building their collections. They've got a deep passion for sneakers, and they trade sneakers. It's a big hobby, and I agree with most of what he's saying there. But then my issue comes when he defines it differently by his numbers, the numbers that he's using. He sets up sneakerheads as only being retro Jordan buyers and buyers of the three marquee Nike players, Kobe, LeBron, and Durant. That is the number that he uses when he calculates that 5% total. That's it. There's nothing else. He may consider collaborations a very nominal amount, but trust me, it's very nominal. And he underestimates the Jordan retro brand sales. So right there, he's already setting and defining what a sneakerhead is in terms that differ from the language and what was written in the article. So just based on that, I have an issue. And then in addition to the fact that he kind of represents sneakerheads as only being Jordan retro brand buyers and buyers of those three athletes, is the fact that he, in calculating this total of what sneakerheads buy, etc., he defines a class of marquee athletes, and like I said, only uses those three athletes. But in a separate Forbes article, where they cite to Matt Powell himself, they describe the marquee players as James Durant, Bryant, but then you also have Derrick Rose, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, John Wall, and Dwight Howard. And when you consider those guys, your total now goes from $500 million, which was an underestimate already, to $635 million. And then you also have to consider shoes like the Jordan 28, which sold out immediately, the Superflies, the Jordan Futures, etc. And he doesn't consider any of this. And in addition to that, there's no consideration of Adidas retros, Reebok retros, Fila, the brand in general, and the list goes on. Now, my next issue, and the thing that was most noticeable to me and jumped out at me the most in this article, was when he said that sports footwear sales in the U.S. is $22 billion. Now, there's no citation for that. In fact, the only two sites he gives throughout his entire article are Sports One Source, which is his own site, and Campless, which is a WordPress blog site. I don't see any sort of U.S. Census Bureau, any type of citation to a credible site like that. So really, for a Forbes article, I thought that this was kind of sloppily done, and it was thrown together extremely quickly. And you can guise it under the term of a blog, but I think that that's just taking the easy way out. Now, in terms of that $22 billion number, I came across many sites with many different ranges, stating many different things. The U.S. Census Bureau said that total footwear sales in 2013 was $48 billion. Then they said U.S. store purchases for shoes was $20 billion. And then I looked at Statista.com, which is another statistics site, and the total footwear sales, not sport footwear, total footwear in the U.S. Amongst Puma, Adidas, and Nike was close to $26 billion. And that's not factoring in sports. That's factoring in every type of shoe, but not every brand, just those three brands. Now, you can already see where I'm going with this. There's so many different variations amongst these numbers. Now, I think the biggest thing he missed throughout trying to make his whole point was the fact that he's saying that sneakerheads really represent a minuscule portion of total sneaker sales, which is something I do agree with. But the whole tone of the article was to make sneakerheads feel insignificant. Now, that's where another one of Powell's quotes and a citation directly to him from another Forbes article comes into play, stating that sales for Kevin Durant, okay, and this is if we're speaking within the sphere of sneakerheads. So going based off Powell's definition of just Jordan retros and Kobe, LeBron, and KD, just going within that sphere and taking the premise that that is what a sneakerhead is, he's still wrong. Because, and he he says it in his own words. Sales for Kevin Durant's Nike signature sneakers jumped 400% from 2012 to 2013. 400%. And that statistic is from his own site. And the numbers went from 35 million to 175 million, which is just drastic. And additionally, there was another research site, NDP Group, that estimated total e-commerce for athletic footwear in the U.S. was worth about $5 billion from May 2012 to April 2013, up 21% from the period a year earlier. So you see a trend of these athletic sneakers increasing in sales just over the past few years, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Which also brings me to an interesting point of I would like to see what percent sneakerheads represented 5 years ago. He's only speaking in stale or what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of flat, even. In the present time, he's only speaking in terms to now, today, just in this one moment in time. Now, if you look at 2012, 2011, 2010, whatever type of calculations he did, which I would like to actually see as opposed to just paragraphs with no citations, I would love to compare 2009 to today, because I would guess that the percentage of sneakerhead sales in 2009 was maybe only 1%, where now it's 5% according to him, which I still don't necessarily believe. But yeah, so that's another issue I have with the article. Then in addition to that, he also totally missed the boat on this one, which is the fact that you have brands that did not even exist 3 to 4 years ago that are now flourishing. And my favorite example, and the number one example I'd like to point out, is the Patrick Ewing shoe brand. I don't think that had been in business since 1989, started up in 2012, and every shoe was selling out. Tell me that cannot be attributed to sneakerheads. And I would almost argue that it's the sole reason that brand became successful. And in addition to that, it's retros across the board. Fila was completely revived because they were able to bring back the Stackhouses, the Grant Hills. These were things that had been dead. They had tried to retro before. Nothing was happening. This sneakerhead trend and this retro trend was and is basically saving brands and establishing brands that had died 15 years ago. Now, if you're telling me that there's no significance there, I think you're wrong. And the numbers show that. And in addition to all these points that I've mentioned, Gentry Humphrey, I met him several years ago when I was an undergrad, and he told me at the time, and told everybody he was speaking to, that the number one most valued statistic at Nike is the number of shoes produced and the number of shoes sold. So if they produce 25,000 and they sell out of the 25,000, that shows that shoe is successful. At that time, which was probably around 2007 or 2008, if I could guess correctly, he said that there had only been a handful of shoes that had completely sold out after the initial release. Since that point, I know that it's an epidemic now. Every single one of these shoes that you see released sells out instantaneously. And that, to Gentry Humphrey, is the definition of success in the shoe brand. Now, if you're telling me that sneakerheads had nothing to do with that, again, you would be wrong. And the numbers show it. Overall, my opinion of this article was There needs to be more. It was very, very short, and there was no sort of citations, anything. It's something that if I was writing an article for Forbes, I would be giving them a lot more detail than that. Even in a blog, you want to have some sort of citation, some sort of way to show that these numbers are legit, which just didn't exist. One of the things that I did agree with in his article, though, was the fact that he said that, and this is the thing that pissed a lot of people off the most, was the fact that he said, in Sneakerhead Press, there's very little original content, frequent cut and pasting of content from other sources, because the sneakerhead media is unwilling or unable to speak the truth to power. Their influence is very limited except inside the echo chamber that is sneaker culture. And for the most part, I actually agree with that comment. And I do see people just pandering to brands. And it's something that I'm not saying I would never do it, but at this point, since I'm not getting paid by anybody, it's not a big deal. I can say what I want to say. This video may only reach 50 people, may only reach one person. It doesn't really matter to me that much. I just wanted to express my opinion on the topic. I actually hope that he checks it out and listens to the whole rationale throughout it. I was going to implement graphs, stuff like that, but I don't want to take the time. I think I made my points clear. As always, guys, rate, comment, subscribe. Sorry this ran so long, and I will see you soon. Peace.